Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Project Fairlady. So you can see here, folks, I'm attempting to sort out the layout for this rear diffuser section on the car. You can see I've got a set of templates there. That's actually my second set of templates that I've made to try and get the proportions and everything right with this. And even though it's alright, I'm still not super happy with it. There are issues relating to the muffler positions that I just cannot get around, and it's driving me goddamn crazy. So what I've decided to do, and it pains me to actually say this, but I'm going to actually cut the mufflers off, change the location of them, change all the piping in the back, pull the mufflers forward, shorten the tips, and just get them a lot closer to the sides of the vehicle. How I set them up originally, I was going off the original bar. I hadn't really thought too much about a diffuser at that stage, and it was just, you know, an oversight that I hadn't really thought this far into the project. I'm also going to raise them as well, so that I have to notch the aluminium panel that I made there to close up the bar. I'm going to get those mufflers up as high as I can. So what that also means is I have to make up new exhaust hangers at the back, because the factory bracket arrangement doesn't allow you to get up that high. It actually fouls with the muffler. So once again, it sucks because the factory brackets have been yellow zinc coated, new rubbers and everything bought for them, and they were really sweet, but unfortunately they're just not going to work. So it sort of all sucks a bit, and I've been thinking long and hard about this before doing it. I've been trying to do everything I can to avoid having to move the mufflers, but honestly, every design that I sort of come up with, I'm faced with the same problem, and that's that the mufflers aren't really where I want them to be. So once again, folks, I'm going to be my worst enemy. Take all this out, cut the mufflers off, change the pipe, cut the tips off, shorten the tips, moving forward, all that sort of stuff that I just mentioned, and that'll put me in a better position to sort this rear diffuser out, because it's just not working the way I want it to work. Alright folks, leave it with me and I'll be back for some updates. So a little bit of progress, folks. As you can see, that muffler over that side is pretty much finished. I haven't made up the bracket to support the end of the muffler on this end, just because I really need to take the bar off to give me access to where the bracket needs to be made up, because it is now so tight in there, like it's impossible to kind of build the new bracket, because as I mentioned earlier, I can't reuse the factory bracket to support that. So I'll get them both done and then I'll sort of take the bar off. But you can see how far it's been moved. If we look at this guy over here, you can see the cutout that I've done in the aluminium piece there that I mentioned I was going to do before, and the muffler on that side is sitting up nice and snug in that cutout, and all that distance over, and the angle of the muffler is changed as well because it's been lifted up more at the front. It's now on a little bit of an angle, which I think actually looks sort of pretty good. So let's have a look from the side and I'll show you what it looks like on a bit of an angle. You get a bit of depth perception of it. So that gives you a bit of an idea of it, folks, how much it's changed. You can see the body of the muffler is further forward this way than that one over there, which has meant that I've had to cut these tips back. That's how much I've cut out of the tip there. 70mm, as you can see from what's written on it, and I've just welded it in this position here and then just polished the weld. It looks fine, there's no dramas with that at all. The reason I've had to pull the body of the muffler forward is because I'm moving it so much closer now to the wheel. Let's go around here. It just means that it's a lot closer to the tyre, you know. When the muffler body was back further, it was that way, so it didn't really matter because the tyres are going to be 2 inches wider on the inside, so they'll actually kind of sit behind the muffler now, whereas in the previous configuration they would have been very close to the corner of the muffler because of the distance back this way. I'll lift the hoist up and I'll give you a look from underneath to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the issue here, folks. If I was to bring the muffler this way like I have on the other side, it would end up very close to this corner of the tyre, whereas you can see that one over there that has now been done, because it's that way, it's way away from the tyre. It's actually within the guard line, So it means I can bring that tyre furthermore to the inside without going even close to it, you know, because the pipe is actually stepped, you know, another 3 or 4 inches in from the side of the muffler. So everything works now, folks. Everything that I wanted to work, all the little issues that I had because of the constraints of the layout from trying to set the mufflers in the original position to match the original bumper, they've now all been sorted out. So let's go to the back again. You probably noticed these slots that I've cut in the back of the bumper there, folks. They're actually the beginning of vents that I'm building to vent the area above the under tray, which will get rid of the heat from the mufflers and encourage a bit of airflow where the differential is. I'm actually thinking about putting a third vent in the diffuser itself to encourage a bit of airflow around the diff, but I'll sort of suss that out when I start rebuilding the diffuser into its new shape. So these vents in the back there, they're a bit of a homage to the Garage Revolve SA Z32. It was one of the original Midnight Street Racing Club cars from Japan in the 90s, and it's still actually around today. It's a pretty interesting story. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about the Midnight Street Racing Club or the Garage Revolve SA Z32, I'll leave some links in the description so you'll be able to get a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about and the car that this vent layout actually comes from. Anyhow, I'm also in the process of building a brace for underneath the car. Now, what I'm doing is I'm building a brace across the back of the floor pan that sort of ties the two sections of the floor pan where the transmission tunnel runs through together. They actually had a brace there, I think, in the convertible models. It was just like a sort of a pressed metal thing. So I'm building one out of a bit of Billet aluminium here. You can see my shitty scratchy layout that I've drawn out there. So I'm going to cut and machine this into a fancy billet brace for under the floor pan, and I'm actually going to use this to, I think, mount some of the structural supports for the floor off this once it's finished. But when I do a bit on this, I'll show you what it is and how it's going. But you can see currently a bit of billet aluminium, going to be shaped like that, and we'll suss it out when I get a bit more done. But anyway, folks, this has come along. It's quite a bit of work to do this to get them sort of so accurately positioned where I want them as well, because I'm dealing with pretty tight clearances now that it's in sort of such a tight area. But I'll get stuck into that one, and when that one's done, I can then start rebuilding the rear diffuser and stuff. So again, I'll be back when there's a little bit more to look at. See you shortly. So this is that rear transmission tunnel brace, folks, mounted in the drill press here. Been doing a bit to it, just about ready to take it out. I've just been drilling holes in it to remove a bit of meat, just to cut down on the weight on the thing. So I'm about to just pull it out and probably do a bit of bandsawing with it next. So I'll get it out of here and clean it up and give you a bit of a look. So that's what we have there, folks, when all of the crap's gotten off it. You can see the layout here. These black Sharpie marks have got a scribe line in them where it's going to be cut out on the bandsaw. You can see it's slightly different to the drawing that I did, which is the way things go a lot. They tend to sort of morph as you start building them. I've done a little bit of a reduction here. That's just to I've taken that down from 10 to 7 just to bring myself back in line with the underside of the frame rails, which is the low point. So I'm just trying to keep everything flush with that low point underneath the car, so you know we just end up with it real nice and flat and there's nothing hanging lower than anything else. But I'll head over to the bandsaw now and I'll get this cut out and I'll give you another look at it when it's all cleaned up. Rightio. And that's just about done now, folks. You can see there, she's ready to go on. It's cleaned up a bit. I may clean it up a little bit more before it goes for its final fit up, but it's not too bad, not too bad at all. So you can see, guys, it's really not that hard to make stuff. A few basic tools. I've used a drill press and a bandsaw on this, and that's it. I did use an end mill to step this down here in my drill press, something you may not be able to do in a normal drill press, but if you have a little mill or something, mate, you're laughing. There you go, beautiful little billet piece. Let's go and fit it on the Fairlady, and I'll show you what its purpose is. So this is where it goes across here, folks. This is the end of the transmission tunnel. Right at the back there. I'll just whack this on. So you can see why I put this bit of a boomerang shape in it there, folks. It's because the resonators that I've put on the exhaust system here, they were a little bit too far forward in relation to this. Again, just bad planning on my part. I wasn't really aware that I was going to put this brace on here, so I hadn't allowed for anything like that with these mufflers. I'd kept them below the level of the floor, but only just because this is the underside of this is actually the low level of the underside of the chassis rail, so that's where the flat floor is going to go. These bolts are going to have to be countersunk or button heads or something, and then possibly drilled through these as well, because as I say, that's sort of the underside of the flat floor there. Pull this back, folks, so you can see what its purpose is. So you've got the transmission tunnel that goes all the way down through there, and it goes up quite high, and this just ties these two sections of floor together, which really ties the car together in that area there. It's basically just closing up the box. So you can imagine if you've got like a cardboard box with the lid open, it's quite floppy and all that sort of thing, whereas if you shut the top and tape it up, it suddenly becomes very stiff. Same deal with something like this. It basically just closes up the box, you know, which you've got that open box, which is the transmission tunnel. As I mentioned, I'm pretty sure that this is actually a piece that was available in press metal for the convertible models, hence why there are some bolt holes there, some threaded holes there to go into. But I like my billet piece better. As I said, I couldn't use the press metal piece even if I could get one anyway, because it would interfere with these resonators. So there it is, folks. Another piece done. So I guess we'll get on to changing that exhaust system at the back so we can finish that diffuser off. That's the tip welded back together, folks. Come up all right. I'll go and get that on the polisher now, which is just an old bench grinder with a stitched cotton mop polisher thing on it, and that should come up pretty reasonable, I reckon. All right, I'll polish this up and give you another quick look. And that's it there, folks. All polished up. Very simple. Yeah, it's an extra line on there. Like you can see, it was originally welded, you know, in this corner here. But, mate, you don't really notice it. It's all sort of hidden under the car. It was just a bit of a pain in the ass to get in there to cut that off there. It was my biggest issue with the little grinder, you know, like with this edge here. It's just not really doable, not to be able to get it neat and not to sort of hack all this area up. So I came out enough that I could clear it with the grinder when I was cutting the old tip off. That's why I've come out to that position. But as you can see, as long as it's a pretty neat weld and you repolish up the stainless, mate, no one's going to even look twice at it when it's on the car. All right, I'll carry on and start fitting this thing up. Alrighty, that's looking a bit better there. Pretty much back to where I started before I started frigging around with the exhaust system, but I'm much happier with it now. Having the mufflers where they are now makes it really easy to finish off against the side of the body, which is what the issue was before. It just didn't look right no matter sort of what I did to it. It's kind of roughly, I think, how the finished product's going to end up being. Obviously, though, it's going to be made out of sheet aluminium. some minor changes, some minor sort of angle changes here and there. That venti thing that I've got in the centre there is going to be different. That's just sort of something I carved out just for a bit of a look at. But just generally, you see how it looks. Doesn't look too bad. When the car's down on the ground, you can barely even notice it at all. It's just really not something that jumps out at you. But yeah, pretty happy with it, I guess. Pretty happy with it. I've got the rear spoiler on there just so I could get a bit of a look at it with that on, for a more sort of complete look at the back. But that's how it is for now anyway, folks. We'll see what happens with it. I'll probably put a lot of time into looking at it. I've taken probably, I don't know, probably 30 photos of it from different angles and different heights. I'll probably sit there on my computer tonight and just go over the photos and look for things that I don't like and things that I can change. I've already actually done that with this up to this point, and there's already a couple of things I want to change. If you can see here, I want to put a little bit more of a bigger round on the bottom of these. I think they would look better with a bit more of a round. This angle here, it's already quite an angle, but I think I might make it even more. I just don't know, it's one of those things you've got to just look and look and look at every different angle and look how it's sort of sitting, you know, whether or not, and decide whether or not you really like it, because while it's in MDF, this is the time to be mucking around with it, you know. Anyway, folks, hope you like all that. Even though it was a bit of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, it is nevertheless progress. Obviously there's all the structural stuff to go with this to work out how to mount this and all that sort of thing, like that bit of aluminium that you can see under there. That's just a bit of box section that's clamped up underneath this. This diffuser will actually lead into the flat floor. There'll be nothing like that sort of sitting between it. Anyhow, that'll just about do it for this video. So if you've hung in there this long, I really appreciate it, guys. So as always, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always a bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel. And, as always, I'll bloody well see you on the next one. Cheers.